Today, we're going to talk about something in your life that you may be experiencing that's enhancing the pain that you feel, the pressure that you feel. Some of this may be you putting it on yourself, and some of it may be coming from the content you watch, media around you, people that you know. This is a sense of false urgency. If you have no idea who I am, I'm Cameron. I'm Andy's co-coach in his business and coaching program. I want to talk about this because I've been seeing it quite a lot amongst coaching clients that Andy and I have helped, guys who are just within my accountability groups. I have a business accountability group, so we had a big chat about this the other day. It dovetails nicely into people's journeys if they're discussing marketing and they're building businesses, building products, trying to sell to people. They'll be very aware of this concept of urgency. But I've also just noticed it so much in self-improvement, specifically with any guy who is working on a goal and how much pressure they're putting on themselves to get things done within a certain time frame or to get things done before they have the ability to do that thing anymore. And we'll look at it from the urgency that you create in your own mind and also the urgency that's put on you by other people. As I said, this is big within marketing and it's big within content creation. I don't consider this to be a pain itself. I want to be very clear about that. This isn't a pain, so to speak. It's an amplifier of like an underlying pain that you may have. And that's how it functions in marketing anyway. Anyone who's, tried to build like a sales letter with copywriting, anyone who's studied advertising, anyone who's, worked in retail, you'll understand that it's a pressure tactic to have a sense of urgency. But it only really works if someone's like interested in the product already. So what's an obvious example? If you saw high heels for sale and you're a guy, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, I need to get those before they're all gone. Because often, these companies will put like, get it before stock runs out, those kind of pressure tactics, temporary discounts, things like that, designed to give you like a time frame to buy this or you'll miss out on it. This only works in these situations if you're already interested and you already want the thing that they're offering you. So if you don't have like a specific pain or a specific need or a specific desire related to that product, it's not going to work on you at all. So urgency is not itself a pain, but it is a major factor in we see with guys when it comes to the magnitude of the pain and the suffering they're experiencing and the pressure that they're experiencing is largely coming from this. So I think it's critical to understand how it plays on people, how it plays on potentially you in your self-improvement journey. I can think of a good example when this is something you can't avoid. This is not false urgency. This is like actual urgency. And obviously if you study this stuff from a position of when things are actually urgent and how much pressure you feel. So what's the example that everyone's probably gone through? Studying. A studying example, whether you're cramming revision for an exam and you've got an exam date coming up, or you're writing coursework for a deadline that's coming up. With that is, in my opinion, a fear of failure, a fear of underperformance or something like that, a fear of missing out on what that exam or that coursework would deliver to you if you do well. That's the fear that's being amplified when you have the deadline, when you're racing towards, day by day is ticking off. You thought, oh, I had like 3 months. Shit, I have 3 days. I've had those moments with coursework back in the day. I used to do history, which is very coursework heavy and very research heavy. You can't just kind of like cram it all at the last second. So yeah, I understood that fear of like seeing the days tick down, seeing the time tick towards the exam. That sense of urgency, it does get a lot worse as you get closer to the deadline, but it wasn't the urgency itself that was causing the pain. It was the fear of what happens if I fuck up the exam. So that's why that's the best example I can think of where it's obvious that it's not the actual urgency that is causing the pain. It is an underlying pain being amplified. Now, back to the fucking point. Andy and I absolutely love to stop guys in their tracks when they're explaining a sense of urgency about a goal when there isn't actually any fucking urgency at all. When people give us like timelines or they're acting as if they're working under pressure, and Andy and I are just like, well, is that true? Like, what happens if you don't get this thing done by tomorrow? If it's like your own business you're working on, or it's like dating that you're working on, or it's the gym. Like, what actually happens if you don't go to the gym tomorrow. If you don't go to the gym tomorrow, nothing fucking happens. You don't lose all of your gains. You're suddenly not able to lift the weight you were able to lift before. Losing one day doesn't mean anything. It's not going to get you to that goal. Really, it's not going to get you to that goal any faster. And in fact, if you took the rest day, it might actually recover quicker and perform better the next time. So there isn't this urgency to go in and get all your reps out, to get all your, to hit all your strength goals, to break all that muscle down and rebuild it. But you're conditioned to think that you can't miss those days, that you need to get to the gym now, you need to get to the gym when you're supposed to, or everything's going to be to shit. You feel really bad about it. You feel like you haven't, made the gains in the amount of time. I guess you built up hope to do a certain amount in a certain amount of time. And the fact that you weren't able to do that is making you feel really shit about yourself. You've been conditioned to think in this way, conditioned into thinking that you have limited, really limited time and you have to maximize fucking everything. And I really do blame the content around us and everything. Because I feel a lot of YouTube content now is put through this lens of urgency. It's put through this lens of fucking go and get it now. Don't sit around. Don't wait. Don't be patient. And I think it's aimed a lot at guys who haven't started. But for guys who are watching our content, a lot of guys are just, are in the midst of their journeys already. They're already doing things. So this sense of urgency, fucking get to the finish line now, isn't helpful. Because a lot of the stuff you're doing requires, patience, requires, being able to miss days and not beat yourself up for it, requires maybe re-examining the time frames that you have and giving yourself more runway. All of these things are actually really good to have on a self-improvement journey. Andy especially repeatedly says the only secret to succeeding is to not quit. And the underlying point of that is this might take fucking time. It might take you a long time to get really good with women and getting laid. It might take a really long time for you to build a great physique. It might take you years to build the business that will give you financial and freedom and, the ability to quit your job. These things do take time, usually. I can't think of anything that's a really good self-improvement goal that doesn't take very much time. There are small things like fixing your sleep schedule, getting to a baseline level of health for some people. It doesn't take that long, quitting things. But there's a lot of stuff that takes time, and this false sense of urgency on a lot of these goals is so unnecessary, and it's so helpful to remove it, to help the guy, and girls who are being coached in question, just, breathe a little easier, accept things at the speed at which they come, and accept that they're not going to, just not going to die of, they don't get the goal on the exact date that they said. I definitely do this with myself. I'm not immune to this. Andy and I were talking about planning our years and our yearly goals. And when you get towards the end of the year, you look at your list of yearly goals and it becomes very I've got to hit this before the year ticks over into the next year or I'm an absolute failure. And you realize the closer you get, that marker between this year and next year, it's quite arbitrary, realistically you should be or looking at things a year from now. And now we're what? I'm recording this video. I don't know when Andy's going to release it, but we are less than 2 weeks from the end of the year. So it's that's quite a short amount of time for me to try and do anything if I haven't managed to get things done on my yearly list. Arbitrary deadlines that guys put on themselves is the one that gets me the most. It's something that I do to myself. And it's the one where when I hear it from someone else, I'm why have you got that arbitrary deadline? Why do you think that you need to be a millionaire before you're 35? That's a good one. I think I've heard that from a YouTube creator. And it was a sense of ego. It was I don't every man must be a millionaire by the time they're 35. It might have been 40. He's if you're not a millionaire by the time you're 40, what the fuck have you been doing? There's obviously a big judgment value, big you're not worth anything unless you meet my arbitrary deadline here. But you see a lot of guys with these kind of deadlines of just I must hit a certain amount of income but before I'm this age. And it's I would rather you work through that and be yeah, why do you feel you need to hit that? Would you be getting to that goal faster if you didn't feel that pressure? If you didn't have that? Because I see a lot of guys, a lot of guys will crumble under the pressure they put on themselves. And I think they might get there quicker if they enjoy the journey rather than being stressed about the arbitrary deadline. Now, the other one is the do X thing before I'm no longer able to. That's another one we see that's pretty common. I need to get laid before I'm too old. That's a big one. Now, if you were like, I guess, significantly old, like, I don't know, like if you were like 55 and you came to us, you were like, I really want to get dating. So yeah, before this, so I can actually like, you know, relax and settle down when I'm 60, we may be able to take you a bit more seriously. But if a guy comes to us who's like 23, it's like, I need to get like laid as much as possible before I'm 30 because 30 is too old. And he's telling that to Andy, who is 35. I'm almost turning 31 soon. And like, I'm still out there dating. I live ethically non-monogamously. I'm dating all the time, basically just remaining single so I can keep myself, you know, on the streets, like learning. So I know what works and I can teach you guys effectively. And then you've got Andy, who's with Emmy, but they date girls together. So it's like, yeah, we're old and we're doing it. You know what I mean? It's weird guys saying that to us when we're living what they're afraid of. I see it quite a lot. Like, I'm not trying to like straw man anyone here. You see that repetitively. The one I had was I wanted to get laid before I lose my hair. I had that thought was so strong when I was like 23. I was like, I better go get dating now while I still have a head of hair because it's going to be impossible after I go fully bald. And then I went fully bald and I did what the percentage points are, but several 1,000% better at dating after I went bald because, you know, I was older. I figured out what works. I learned how to dress properly. I learned how to talk to women. I learned what to do. I had gained a significant amount of confidence. But when I had hair and I was younger, I was useless because I didn't have all of that stuff. But I thought that the hair was the problem and that once I'd lost it, I wouldn't be able to do it anymore. So I had this urgency on myself to get out there and fucking get in there and date. And I think I performed badly for it. I think I didn't do what I could have done more effectively because I had that sense of urgency. I think the urgency, the pressure, I think it confuses guys. It makes breakdowns more likely. There's people are going to argue that it's worth it. Like it helps push people towards doing stuff. I think that's true up to a point. It's more the guys who haven't started yet that it's helpful for. Not the guys who are 6 months into their journey and starting to get to near the point of a breakdown, basically not enjoying the process, in danger of quitting. Those are the guys. I'm talking to you guys. I'm talking to and girls. I'm talking to you directly now. You who have been on this journey for a while and are feeling bad and are feeling the pressure and maybe the sense of urgency that you're putting on yourself is the problem. I think with all of these things, you see the word need a lot. Like, I need to do this and this needs to be done by this date. And Andy and I do push back on the word need. Andy especially, he likes the words need and should to be removed from everyone's vocabularies. The idea is that you want to do these things. You want these things in your life. Like, you want more girls in your life. You want an abundance of wealth and money so you can have the freedom to do whatever you want to do with it. You want to have the physique and the strength that you're chasing. You want the goals you're chasing. You don't need them. That like feeling of need is the other thing, you know. That's where a lot of the suffering comes from. And the urgency is amplifying everything. Like, you need it and you need it within this time frame, like doubling that amplification of potential suffering. And you know, I want to stamp that out if possible. The thing I would say with this as well is when you say something like, I need to do this like now, I need this soon, I need this as soon as possible, I would like you to like play out a bad case scenario. So play out what happens if you don't. Like saying I need to do this by next month or whatever. Play out the bad case scenario, not the irrational worst case scenario of like I'll get hit by a plane or something. Whatever. People can be weird about this stuff. Just like a bad case scenario. Like entertain it as if what you think is going to go wrong goes wrong, and just analyze whether or not you'd be okay in that situation. I can do something with a really tangible one, you know? Like say you're worried that you're not going to make rent next month. That's got a serious urgency time frame. That's got a lot of, you know, negatives associations attached to it. So you don't make your rent and you're going to potentially lose the apartment. What goes wrong? What happens? What does that look like? Play out the scenario. Because as you begin to play out some of these scenarios, you tend to be able to make peace and let go with the pains and the fears. I'm not saying don't make your fucking rent next month. I'm just saying as like a mental exercise. Because for me, if I didn't make rent, I'd be able to hit up a mate and go stay with them. Or I'd be able to get an extension with my landlord. These are like problems that have a time frame and an urgency deadline, but they are problems where if I work through them, there's going to be some level of solution, even if it's not optimal. There's going to be things I can do and ways I can continue with my life and still be okay. I think fundamentally, you want to be able to see ahead into these situations and recognize that most of the time, if you play it out, you will still be okay. You will still be fine. And understanding that and realizing that and playing out those scenarios and even come up with some coming up with, I was gonna say mitigating circumstances, come up with like fail safes, come up with stuff you can do, come up with all the ideas that would prevent the bad thing from happening because you didn't meet this deadline. That also helps, having these backup plans, having all this stuff, just thinking through the bad case scenarios and what you would do in those scenarios, I think can really be an alleviation of some of this. As when you're facing one that is very tangible, when you're facing this sense of urgency that is like very real, you can start looking at the bad case scenarios and what you're going to do and how you can be resilient in the face of it. Following on from this, I'm going to recommend you have a look at Andy's mindset course, The Winner's Mindset. I think he does an excellent job of talking about a lot of this stuff, significantly better than I do. Not trying to be humble or anything. Andy's just like really good at zoning in on, guys in self-improvement and what they struggle with. And if you want to build like a bulletproof mindset, his video course it's pay what you can. So you can buy it for $1 if you wish to. So have a look at the links down below. We also offer coaching, plenty of information on that down below. I'll see you guys again in the future. Peace.